Well, welcome to Around the Table, our first video podcast. I'm Steve McCoy. I'm the lead pastor here at Newburgh Church, and we're joined by some of our other ministry staff here that are going to be sharing with us today.
Hi, I'm Karen Golden, and I'm in charge of Children and Family Ministries here at the church.
I'm Kyle Berry, Director of Music and Worship Arts.
I'm Allie Belsky, Director of Student Ministries, Young Adults, and Communications.
Greetings everyone from Newburgh Church. We want to welcome you here today to our first video podcast called Around the Table. And we are gathered around the table here today, and we're going to be talking about, over these next couple of weeks, different aspects of things that are happening in the church and why we do a lot of the things that we do. So today's first topic, we're going to be talking about the season of Lent and what does it mean to be in the season of Lent, and particularly what it means to have a Lenten discipline. You might hear us talk about these things from time to time, but we're going to try to get into what do we actually do and what does that actually mean for us as well. So the broad overview for Lent is that we have typically done this in the Christian faith going back to ancient times, and the season of Lent was initially developed as a way to help prepare new converts for Christianity. During that 40-day season that begins on what we now know as Ash Wednesday, new converts prepared themselves by prayer, fasting, and self-denial in order to be ready for baptism on Easter Sunday, the day of resurrection. So that is the day that new life in Christ is revealed, and that is when people who had renounced their pagan ways became Christians and experienced that new life in Christ as well through baptism. Over the years, it became a practice for all Christians to do during that 40-day period, which was to resemble Jesus' temptation in the wilderness during those 40 days after his baptism and preparing to journey with Jesus to the cross. So it became a time of penitence for all Christians to do that. Typically, it was done through things of self-denial. So you, quote-unquote, gave up something during the season of Lent. We know that other Christian traditions, Catholic traditions and others, have given up things for every Friday of Lent as well, representing the Good Friday sacrifice. So things that you might be familiar with, like not eating meat on Fridays, is a tradition of self-denial that has persisted throughout the areas as well. And many of us have taken these things on as well, that we would deny ourselves something. But in recent years, we've had to re-examine what it means to have true self-denial. A lot of times we can look at our Lenten disciplines as making a bet with God, that over these 40 days, I bet that I won't be able to, I'll be able to give up chocolate, I should say, for that period of time, or something like that. And then once Easter hits, it's, whoa, okay, I can get back to normal. But the real goal, going back to the ancient tradition of Lent, was to make yourself a better person, to deny yourself of those things in your life that were distracting you from being a better person and a better Christian, so that you're more fully equipped to follow Jesus. And that doesn't always mean just giving up something trivial or superficial, but it also can mean, in this day and age, taking on a discipline that you have not done before in order to be a better follower of Jesus, and committing yourself to actually doing something regularly that you hadn't done before. Either one is acceptable, but with the overall goal of trying to better yourself as a follower of Jesus Christ. So some of our staff is here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about our Lenten disciplines and what it is that we have done. And I'm just going to start us all off. One of the things that is easy to do for us in the ministry is we can get so bogged down with leading and directing and administration that we can forget our own prayer life as well sometimes. And I notice that in my own life. So for this Lent, I'm doing something that I've always known is there, but have become more committed to it. So I'm using Shane Claiborne's book that's called Common Prayer a prayer journal for ordinary radicals. It's available. I use the app that I have on my phone here, but there's also a book that's available that you can buy through Amazon or Cokesbury or any of our other things as well. And what it does for me is it actually consists of a monthly action that we can do. It can be used throughout the year. But every day it gives you a morning, a midday, and an evening prayer discipline. And today's focus actually is on St. Cyril of Jerusalem. And one of the things that he did was work on orthodoxy and orthopraxy, which are fancy church words for, having right belief and right living. And then the prayers that follow with that are about how we can orient ourselves to not only check our beliefs and how are we living those out in our daily lives. So this has been a good discipline for me, just to take time and to relax and to listen for what God's calling me to do and getting the examples of what others have done as well. So what are you guys working on?
Yeah, sure. I'll go. And so one thing that I'm doing for this Lent season is I'm just going through the Bible app on a plan that I actually have set up with a group of people. And on this app, there's several other plans, but the one that we're doing right now is just like a journey to the cross. It's just every day is a new discussion and a new series of what Jesus' life was like on his way to the cross. And it just gives that self-reflection. And what's really cool about doing it with the group is that there's a discussion portion after, and you can see what everyone has kind of thought through and meditated on in the study. And you can kind of converse back and forth a little bit and get it, that sense of what is everyone feeling in this time, and what are you reflecting, and what's God pushing you in right now in that season, whether it be things of like thinking of our selfish nature and just how selfless God, Jesus was in this time. So it's really cool app to just continue, and I have a reminder on my phone. It comes off at 10:30 every morning, and it says, hey, remember to do this, and then maybe by midnight I will have done it. But it's cool because it also holds you accountable, because a little check icon comes up by your photo if you've done the whole devotion, and then you can see when your friends haven't done it, so you can text them and be like, hey, do your devotion. Yeah. So it creates that discipline because it's daily, and that's a very hard thing to do, is keep up with continuing to do that, because it's easy, like you were saying, in our positions where we're like, yeah, I just wrote this lesson, or I just wrote this message, and you're like, all right, that was my time. But it's not. It's just not your time. That's the time we've given to feed others, where things like this are great tools to take in what God is actually calling us to do.
Yeah, and I think what you said there was important, is that, maybe, by the end of the day, we try to get that done. It just shows the discipline. Yeah. This isn't easy.
No, it's not.
It's so easy for us to do. So, that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, myself, I used to get kind of frustrated with what I was going to do for Lent, what I was going to give up, and I would give something up, and I would last maybe 2 weeks into Lent, and then I would go back to it, and then I'd feel like a failure. Like, give up chocolate. I know I'm not going to give up chocolate for 40 days. So.
Right.
So why bother?
Yeah, why put that on my list? But what I have done is try to do more devotional things. I have a great book, Simple Blessings. It's just got little devotions, and especially for the time of the things we're going through right now, it's got a great section on hope. It's really good just to know, or just to be reminded. We know God's always with us, but it's just all these different, like little one-line scriptures that remind you that God is with us, and we're going to go through rough times. He never said we weren't going to have rough times. He's going to be there. So I've been doing a lot more reading, and also trying to help other people, being available for other people, and listening to other people's needs a little more than I normally would. So.
Yeah. I've been doing a study on disciplines, which is kind of weird. But I've been going through Richard Foster's classic book called Celebration of Disciplines. And it's something I went through way back in college. but I really liked because he's really thorough, like with the different kinds of disciplines that we can do as Christians. And usually it's stuff that I forget about or discount, because we know worship and prayer and Bible reading, that's, we all should be doing, and that's what comes to our mind. But like, he goes through some other things that I always forget about. One of them that comes to mind is quietness. He has a whole chapter on just being quiet with God. And how, because, it's kind of the opposite of prayer, where prayer we're always talking to God. And he describes quietness as the practice of basically sitting and listening and waiting for him to speak to you. So that's what I'm going through and trying to remind myself of all of these things that, we tend to forget about.
Yeah. And especially on quietness, in a time like this where we're being told we have to be in more of a social distancing community of life, and you're being told to be a little bit more still, and that's a discipline we need to work on. I was telling someone that it's funny that in society we've gotten to the point where you get excited for plans being canceled sometimes because you're so overwhelmed with being overbooked, and now we're being told, well, your plans are canceled, and so now you must sit still. And what a better lesson, like there's almost no better lesson than this right now, is like, in the times that we have to be still, what is God speaking to us right now? So like books like that and disciplines like that are such amazing reminders, because I mean, we have to be still right now. Like, we have no choice, right?
I think in general, that's something that this whole time period of the coronavirus pandemic has really been teaching me, is that, yes, this isn't great for anybody. Healthcare professionals are going crazy, and we're all, everyone's really afraid of this getting sick, but there's a lot of good things that can come out of this, if we take the time and be like, oh, well, maybe I can, take this time to do this, or,
Yeah, exactly. I'm using the term, there is a silver lining in some of this as well, that we have to find the things for. It's interesting as we talk about that, being still, and, for someone like me who is an extrovert, being still and not being around people is a struggle. And so that's what we're all trying to do, is find ways that, we can still get our energy that we need so we can be the people God's made us to be, yet in the same token, disciplining ourselves in the season of Lent because of what we're dealing with coronavirus here. Right. And I think that's the other thing that, when you were talking, Karen, that reminded me of knowing our limits. And I remember years ago, I was still in seminary actually, and talking about what do I give up for Lent, and how do we figure out how to do that. And one of the things that I didn't know, because it was just for my own personal health, was I am drinking way too much caffeine, which we tend to do in school, and I probably still do to a certain extent, but. So my discipline was not to give up caffeine altogether, but I set up a discipline to say, well, if I do that, I know I'm going to fail. That's not going to last. But I disciplined myself to say, okay, I'm going to have 1 cup of coffee in the morning. I'm going to have 1 caffeinated beverage with lunch and 1 with dinner, and that's it. And then even then, I was able to start scaling back that 1 at lunch versus the countless ones that I did throughout the day, to the point where I was even just getting chest pains and the like, which are all related to, you got to settle down with that stuff. So even not only just setting limits for yourself, but knowing what your limits are, so you can set yourself up to succeed and then take the next step. So maybe the next step after that would be, I haven't done this, but would be taking, completely eliminating caffeine from your diet, or other things along the way. So it's not that it's got to be an all or nothing proposal either. God's working with us throughout our lives. This time helps us to focus on it during Lent, but it doesn't mean that we have to have some Herculean effort to get through as well.
Well, it's like you said earlier, it's about becoming a better person. Not perfect, just better.
Yeah. John Wesley said we're all moving on to perfection, but rarely do we actually get there. We're made perfect through Christ, and that's what our hope is in doing all of this stuff here as well. There's a lot of different things, and maybe some of you out there have taken on some Lenten disciplines. If you just gave something up, hey, that's okay. You have to do what you need to do for your own self. And but what I think all of us are trying to say here is to encourage one another during the season of Lent, and especially during this time where we're dealing with coronavirus, to really discipline ourselves and to think of new ways that we can be better followers of Jesus, we can be better people, better Christians, but also how we can better serve and love our neighbors as ourselves. I think that's, again, another silver lining that we can take from this as well. We're glad that you tuned in to us here today. We're hoping to bring these to you again every Friday for the next several weeks on a variety of topics. We're going to decide what they are as they come, and we hope that you'll find them helpful and enjoyable. Just to note that all the resources that we've been talking about here that we're using, we're going to post here on this screen as well, so that if you'd like to use one of those that we're using here, you can follow that link, whether it's ordering the book or downloading an app for yourself, so that you can follow along if you're still looking for a Lenten discipline at this point also. So again, thanks for gathering with us around the table, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.